It is the last week of April. And in Dubai, that means one thing. Summer has arrived. Not the calendar summer that the rest of the world marks in June, not the gradual, gentle warming that most people associate with the transition between seasons. In Dubai, summer arrives like a door being slammed open. The temperatures are climbing. The humidity is building along the coast. The sky turns white with a heat haze by late morning. And the city of nearly 4 million people is now pivoting, rapidly and completely, into the survival mode that makes Dubai one of the most climatically extreme places on the planet where large numbers of human beings choose to live. This is the official start of the extreme heat season in the UAE. And in 2026, against the backdrop of the hottest baseline global temperatures ever recorded, with a potential Super El Niño building in the Pacific, that the World Meteorological Organization has specifically warned will push temperatures even higher across the globe. What Dubai is entering right now is not just another hot summer. It is potentially the most intense heat season the Emirate has ever faced. Let us start with the numbers, because in Dubai, the numbers are the story. Summer in Dubai officially begins in the last week of April and runs through to early October. During that 6-month period, temperatures regularly exceed 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, and they do not drop significantly at night. While summer averages are reported at 45 degrees Celsius, it is quite typical to experience daytime maximums up to 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest temperature ever recorded in Dubai is 50.1 degrees Celsius, reached in July 2023. The hottest months are July and August. But April is the ignition point, the moment when the transition becomes undeniable and the city shifts gears entirely. April in Dubai marks the transition into the hot season. Daytime highs move to around 33 to 35 degrees Celsius, with nights at 20 to 23 degrees Celsius. Humidity increases, especially near the coast. That may sound manageable compared to what July brings. But here's the critical thing about April heat in the UAE that most people outside the region do not fully understand. It is not just about the temperature reading on a thermometer. It is about what that temperature does to a human body when it is combined with the Gulf's humidity. And it is about the trajectory, because what April brings is only the beginning of a 6-month escalation that will not peak until the height of August. There's also a phenomenon that Dubai residents call the heat dome effect, when a persistent high-pressure system parks itself over the Arabian Peninsula and traps hot AI beneath it like a lid on a pot. Under a heat dome, the air cannot escape upward and instead sinks, compressing and warming further as it descends. Temperatures under a heat dome are not merely high. They are relentless, day after day without relief, without a cooling wind, without clouds to block the sun. The UAE National Centre of Meteorology tracks these patterns closely and has been studying their increasing frequency and duration over the Arabian Peninsula in recent years. The data shows that heat dome events that once lasted 3 to 5 days are now persisting for 10 to 14 days with growing frequency. When a heat dome establishes itself over Dubai at the height of summer, the city becomes one of the most hostile surface environments on the planet for any unprotected living thing. The concept of feels-like temperature, or the heat index, is where Dubai's summer becomes genuinely alarming. Dubai is experiencing heat conditions where the deadly combination of high humidity and intense air temperature creates a heat index that feels significantly higher than the nominal air temperature. During the peak of summer 2024, an air temperature of 109 degrees Fahrenheit and a dew point of 85 degrees Fahrenheit produced a heat index of 144 degrees Fahrenheit at Dubai International Airport. 144 degrees. That is not a typo. That is the real experienced temperature that a human body standing outside in Dubai had to contend with on that afternoon. And meteorologists warn that Dubai's temperatures are approaching the wet bulb limit, the point at which going outside becomes life-threatening. The wet bulb temperature is a specific and deeply serious scientific threshold. Wet bulb temperatures of over 35 degrees Celsius are lethal for humans if exposed to them for more than 6 hours, because when humidity approaches 100%, sweat no longer evaporates, preventing the body from cooling down. Sweating is the human body's primary mechanism for surviving extreme heat. It is the reason people can tolerate a dry desert heat that a thermometer would call dangerous, because in low humidity, sweat evaporates efficiently and carries heat away from the body. But when the air is already saturated with moisture, sweat cannot evaporate. It sits on the skin. The body keeps generating heat. The core temperature rises. And unless the person moves to a cool environment quickly, the outcome is organ failure and death. Dubai's summer is now regularly approaching conditions where that process, the failure of the human body's primary cooling mechanism, becomes a real and present danger for anyone without access to air conditioning. That reality shapes everything about life in Dubai and the UAE from late April through September. The city is designed around it. The malls are kept at temperatures that feel almost cold when you step in from outside. Office towers run their cooling systems at maximum capacity around the clock. Cars are started remotely to cool the interior before anyone gets in. Outdoor restaurant terraces, beach clubs, and rooftop venues that thrive during the mild winter months go dark until October. The rhythm of the city fundamentally changes. Morning hours become precious, afternoons become something to be survived indoors. And for the millions of outdoor workers whose labor built and continues to build this city, the arrival of the heat season triggers a legal framework unlike almost anything else in the world. The UAE's midday outdoor work ban is one of the most significant occupational safety policies in the Gulf, and in 2026, its enforcement is under closer scrutiny than ever. The midday break ban prohibits outdoor work under direct sunlight from 12:30 p.m. to 3:00 p.m. between June 15th and September 15th, according to the rules of the Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratisation. The rule is applicable in every emirate, aimed at ensuring that workers are not subjected to excessive heat that may reach up to 45 to 50 degrees Celsius during summer seasons. Violations can result in fines of up to AED 5,000 per worker. The fines go higher for repeat violations. Employers who do not adhere to the rule may face penalties of up to AED 50,000 in cases of repeated violation, but the midday ban covers only the peak hours of June through September. What it does not cover is the enormous volume of outdoor labor that continues in the weeks before June 15th. Including right now in late April and May, when temperatures are already climbing past 38 and 40 degrees Celsius, and the heat stress on outdoor workers is already severe. Construction sites across Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Sharjah are in full operation. Road maintenance crews are working under the open sky. Landscaping teams are active in the morning hours. The men and women doing this work, the vast majority of whom are migrant workers from South Asia and Southeast Asia, many living in labor camps on the city's outskirts, face heat exposure levels that as dangerous even before the legal ban kicks in. The question that human rights organizations and labor advocates are asking louder each year is whether the June 15th start date for the official ban is still appropriate for a climate that is measurably hotter than it was when the policy was first written, and whether the hours of 12:30 to 3:00 p.m. are still sufficient when heat stress can begin to be dangerous from mid-morning onward in peak summer conditions. Experts state that the UAE has one of the most organized heat protection systems in the region, but the regularity of its implementation is a priority, particularly in smaller or remote workplaces. That gap between the policy on paper and the reality in smaller, less visible work sites is the tension that defines the conversation about worker safety in Dubai every summer. And in 2026, with temperatures tracking above historical norms and a Super El Niño potentially arriving to push them higher still, that tension is more acute than it has ever been. The health dimensions of Dubai's extreme heat season extend far beyond outdoor workers. When your body overheats beyond 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, it can lead to heat stroke, a potentially life-threatening condition especially common in Dubai's intense summer heat. Early signs of heat stroke include delirium, balance problems, weakness, loss of consciousness, and hot, flushed skin. Heat stroke can develop rapidly, sometimes within just a few hours of exposure to high temperatures, and if untreated, can cause severe organ damage or even death. Risk factors such as obesity, alcohol consumption, dehydration, blood pressure medications, and tight clothing exacerbate the dangers of heat exposure. Potential complications include brain swelling, nerve damage, kidney or liver failure, and acute respiratory distress syndrome. These are not edge case medical outcomes reserved for people who do something reckless in the heat. They are the documented consequences of inadequate heat protection for ordinary people, residents, tourists, workers, and elderly individuals in a city where the ambient environment is actively hostile to unprotected human bodies for 6 months of the year. Dubai's world-class hospital network and emergency medical infrastructure handle heat-related illness cases every summer. The UAE Ministry of Health issues public advisories every year urging residents to stay hydrated, avoid outdoor activity during peak heat hours, and to use air-conditioned spaces as shelter. But for the hundreds of thousands of people in the city without reliable access to cooling, in older residential buildings, in overcrowded labor accommodation, in vehicles without functioning air conditioning, the advisories are only as useful as the infrastructure available to act on them. The tourism industry is also navigating this shift with increasing urgency. Dubai welcomed a record number of international visitors in the cooler months of 2025 and early 2026, but the shoulder months of April and May, when the city is transitioning into summer, are becoming more difficult to market to visitors who are not prepared for the pace of the heat's arrival. Tourists who arrive in late April expecting mild spring weather and find themselves in 38-degree heat with rising humidity frequently report being caught off guard, unable to enjoy outdoor attractions, spending far more time in air-conditioned environments than anticipated, and in some cases experiencing heat exhaustion that sends them to hospital facilities they had not budgeted for. The economic implications for Dubai's tourism sector are real, and the Emirates tourism authorities are actively managing messaging around this transition period. The energy dimension of Dubai's heat season is another part of this story that rarely receives the attention it deserves. Keeping a city of nearly 4 million people cool for 6 months in temperatures that regularly reach 45 to 50 degrees Celsius requires an almost incomprehensible amount of electricity. During a severe heat wave in 2024, power output across the UAE region reached its highest ever megawatt per hour level as people turned up their air conditioning to offset the heat effects. The UAE's electricity demand during summer peaks at levels that place extraordinary strain on the grid. And that demand is rising every year as the population grows, as new towers and developments come online, and as the baseline temperature continues climbing. The cost of cooling Dubai through a summer is built into every utility bill, every business overhead, and every property price in the Emirate. It is invisible to most residents, most of the time, but it is the fundamental economic reality that underlies life in one of the world's most energy-intensive cities. The 2026 heat season is arriving against a global backdrop that makes it more concerning than any previous year. The World Meteorological Organization has issued a formal warning that El Niño conditions are expected to develop by mid-2026, with multiple major climate agencies projecting a potentially strong or Super El Niño event by October. Climate scientists' projections show that a strong El Niño could push global temperatures to new record levels in late 2026 and into 2027. For the Gulf region, already one of the hottest and most climatically vulnerable areas on Earth, a Super El Niño layered on top of the already elevated 2026 temperature baseline could produce a summer of unprecedented intensity. Gulf Sea surface temperatures, which drive the region's punishing coastal humidity, have been tracking above historical norms for several years. Higher sea temperatures mean more moisture in the air. More moisture means higher heat index values. And higher heat index values mean that the already dangerous conditions Dubai experiences every summer edge closer to the physiological limits of human survivability for longer periods and more frequently than in any previous year on record. Dubai has built itself into a global destination precisely because it refuses to let its climate define what is possible within its borders. The indoor ski slope inside a mall, the year-round tourism built on artificial beaches and climate-controlled entertainment districts, the Formula One racing circuit that runs in November, the World Expo infrastructure and the tourism economy that the UAE has deliberately cultivated for the winter and spring months when the city is at its most livable. All of that reflects a deliberate strategy of building around the heat rather than fighting it. But as the heat intensifies year by year, the cost of that strategy, in energy, in public health, in worker safety, and infrastructure, rises alongside it. The extreme heat season in Dubai has officially begun. The temperatures are climbing. The humidity is building. The city is shifting into its summer configuration. And somewhere in that shift, in the cooling of the malls, the enforcement of the work bans, the health advisories going out across social media and official channels, the overnight minimum temperatures refusing to drop below 28 or 30 degrees Celsius, is a reality that the UAE and the world are both navigating in real time. How do you sustain a city of 4 million people, a global economy, and a quality of life that millions have chosen to call home, in an environment that is growing measurably more hostile to unprotected human life with each passing year? That question does not have a simple answer, but it is the question that Dubai's 2026 summer will be asking, loudly, relentlessly, and with temperatures that leave no room for doubt about the stakes.